Welcome back to Fast Market on the Schwab Network. Kevin Hinks and Kevin Green. Now it's time for our Cash Tag segment. I'd like to bring in the co-founder of Likefolio.com, Mr. Andy Swan, to the show. He's going to talk about our feature stock of the day, which is Airbnb. Welcome to the show, Andy. Andy, a revolutionary business that runs asset light, connecting guests with lodgers, doesn't take a lot of capital to upkeep. Can you find anything fundamentally wrong with this company, Andy?
No, what's great is I finally get to come on this show after a year of bashing Airbnb and talk about all their problems. I finally get to come on and talk about some good news. When we look at Airbnb Likefolio data, we're seeing that it is the only company in the travel sector with positive year-over-year traffic growth and web traffic growth. That's off of, really beaten down lows, but it is positive, and it is cutting against the rest of the industry trend, which is extremely interesting, something that we haven't seen in quite a while. And the reason for this, and, another reason that we're starting to think Airbnb might be on the right track finally, is when we look at consumer happiness levels. When we look at those versus competitors, they're still low versus competitors, but they're trending in the right direction for the first time in a very long time. Now positive, and even up near 61, 62% if we shorten the window to just the last couple weeks or so. So finally, I think Airbnb understands and is acting on what the customers were complaining about. They aggressively improved their offering by delisting 200,000 of their worst performing listings on their platform. And I don't know about you, but I've never heard of a hotel chain saying we have shut down 200,000 of the rooms across the world that people complain about the most. It just doesn't happen. So the flexibility that Airbnb has by being an asset-light business, like you talked about, gives them the opportunity to really focus in on that customer experience. It took them a little too long to get there, but what we're seeing at Likefolio is that they've finally gotten the message and are reacting in an appropriate manner that is resonating with their customers, and it's a really good thing to see from this company because they have been beaten down and the butt of some jokes for quite a while, and so it's really nice to see them, transforming back to where they're the best executing travel company in the world with a lot of flexibility.
So Andy, I'm going to push back on you here for a little bit. We're looking at this earnings announcement that's going to be coming up on November 27th, so we still have a little bit of time here. Delta this morning said that they are seeing travel kind of dry up around the election season. Do you think that there might be a potential near-term risk for Airbnb's guidance moving forward, even though the longer-term vision, as you're kind of talking about, looks like it's getting better than what we had perceived in the past?
Yeah, you make a good point. What I'm talking about is Airbnb getting over a very, very low bar. This is a stock that kind of got thrown out for a considerable amount of time. It really hasn't moved. The travel sector in general, we agree. And if you look at the Likefolio data across all those hotel chains and travel companies, everyone else is down. So we think Airbnb actually has the opportunity to go out there and say, yes, we are facing some significant macro headwinds, but the moves that we've made are allowing us to perform better than expected and better than our competitors, without necessarily saying that the macro environment is turning completely around. I think that they're going to have to, like you said, they're going to have to acknowledge these massive headwinds, but say that they're doing a good job of navigating them, which I think for the first time in a long time is true.
Andy, I think we can all agree the short-term rental industry is a relatively new industry, going through some growing pains and lack of trust and unreliability, like you mentioned, getting some bad actors off this site. It seems like a lot of things are starting to dissipate. And here's a stat that really catches my attention. For every one person that checks into an Airbnb, 9 people check into hotel rooms. Think about if they take that to 2 or 3, how much of a growth initiative that can be itself. It's incredible when you think of it like the whole group of potential travelers.
Yeah, when you think of it, there's two ways to look at market share. Market share can be of the short-term rental business and, just comparing yourself to VRBO or others like that. Or like you're saying, you can think of market share as the entire traveling lodging public, which I think is the bigger idea and probably where Airbnb tends to focus, and I think that's the right focus. Just to go back to the previous point with the macro headwinds,
sure.
There's definitely still some signals that there are problems. There's shorter booking windows, less lead time for the average booking. In other words, people aren't booking 2-3 months in advance. They're booking 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and they're booking those for a shorter time period. So it does show that the customer is cautious. And it does show that the macro environment for lodging is very difficult. The only thing I'm trying to really get across on this is that finally, for the first time, we can say Airbnb specifically is outperforming competitors on both the demand side and the consumer happiness side, which really hasn't happened in 24, 36 months.
You make a very interesting point, Andy, because here's one little thing that you may not realize, or people may not realize when you talk about Airbnb. They take in the money when you book it. They pay it out when you check in. So that lead time, that's interest for them.
Yeah.
They make profits off storing that money for the interest. And if you book it 1 or 2 or 3 months in advance, that's interest and income to Airbnb. So that's actually a good point. If those lead times are coming down, that's less income for Airbnb, even though, this company has $11 billion in cash, $2 billion in convertible debt. So a really good looking balance sheet. It's just more adaptation that this company needs. Andy Swan, final thoughts.
Yeah, I think, caution is appropriate here, but we've now switched from pessimistic caution to optimistic caution. So that's that can be a big shift. And I think Airbnb is positioning itself when the macro environment does change to tailwinds, that they're going to be ready to capitalize on that in a big way, finally.
And ending on a positive note like Andy Swan always does. Thanks for coming on, Andy. Have a great day. Thanks for the Likefolio data.
Thank you.
All right, Kevin Green. Now, your final thoughts, and you brought us a trade in Airbnb.